consumer. So welcome, I'm glad you could come, and I turn it over to Eric Lorberer.
Thank you so much, Tom. It is such a treat to be here at Patrick's. I kind of can't believe we haven't done this before, but I sort of can feel that we'll be doing it again and again and again. As many of you know, Rain Taxi's event series is peripatetic. We go wherever will have us, actually, but really we go to different places of the community so that we can try to reach different audiences, intermingle different audiences, and we like it that way. So I want to thank Patrick for having us. Also want to thank the voters of Minnesota for passing that legacy amendment. How great is that? I mean, aren't we all just, it just, as each year goes by, it strikes me what a profound act that has been and how wonderfully it's affecting our arts community. So I'm really happy to have this event be part of that. Otis Powell and Rain Taxi together received a cultural collaborations grant from the State Arts Board of Minnesota to create this project, and we've been working on it for almost a year. Tonight is the birth of that project. I want to obviously thank all of you for coming, and I want to thank these three wonderful musicians, Davu, Seru, and Donald and Faye Washington, for joining with us tonight to celebrate, but to do more than celebrate, as you'll hear, and as won't surprise any one of you. Music is an integral part of what Otis Powell is up to as a literary artist. And that brings me to the man himself. I know he does not need an introduction in our world, as Tom
but I'd
said.
be so insulted if I didn't get one.
well, we have a kind of a, well, anyway. I do want to say that that it's just been a delight to work with him this past year, and we sat down and did a very lengthy interview in which we talked about Otis's upbringing and every aspect of his being as an artist, including what he's up to in this work. And I think what I really want to say is that I'm so inspired by an artist who continually both refines their form, the mastery of their form, and pushes themselves in new directions. And I feel that that's what has been happening here, and that's why it's been such an exciting process to read this work and trade these drafts and create this chapbook that you now hold in your hands. Like many of you, I had known and admired Otis Powell, the spoken word artist. I did not know there was a Otis Powell, the budding novelist, and to get to know that artist and to get to present that artist to you tonight is a real treat. So, without further ado, I'm going to ask you to join me in welcoming Otis Powell and his friends.
And I will do a more thorough introduction of my associates on the stage. To my right is Davu, Seru. He and I have, 5 or 6 or 7 productions together under our belt now, and the more I play with him, the more I admire what he does, and I just marvel at how he is a percussionist and how he's a scholar and how he's such a gentle human being. And so every opportunity I get to hire him to perform with me, I do that for the last couple of years. And so welcome him to the stage, please. Tom talked about the history of Patrick's Cabaret. Donald Washington and I used to perform at the place next to the freeway over on 24th when I was in Patrick's living room. And one of my favorite stories about Donald and I performing over there, we had to perform 2 nights. We'd perform on Friday night, and then we'd come back and perform again on Saturday night. And one of those times, I didn't make it on the Saturday night. I took a nap and didn't wake up in time. And Donald thought I was trying to trick him. So he expected me to show up and come out of the ceiling or come from somewhere unexpected at any time, and I never showed up. So he did the gig alone. And the next day, he showed up at my house and he gave me my money. He said, "This is sleeping money." That's how close we are. That's how we love each other. And Faye has been a part of the New Day Blues Band, which is an ensemble that I used to perform with Donald and Kevin and Elmar Romaine and Sam Favors. And we used to open for various musicians like Maceo Parker at First Avenue. And you will hear a story that's factually based in one of those experiences. I have changed the names to protect the guilty. And so this is a mixture of fiction and factual reality coming together in aesthetic values that I have inherited and learned a lot from these people that I perform with. I mean, everything I know about being a poet, I learned from musicians. And as Amiri Baraka used to say, poetry is nothing but music. The musical aspects of language is a part of our oral tradition, and I try to be responsible for carrying that forward. So if you would give us some more music, we'll find our way into this thing. We are the thing itself. We are not acting like it. We are being the thing itself. We are the art. We are the artist. We are not artifacts. We are the thing itself. We are beings in motion. We are dipping from the bottomless sky. People ask me often about the book, and I'm so glad to have it in my hands so I can say, read the book. But when I first started talking to Eric about this project, I kept submitting stuff that he kept giving back to me and said, you got anything else? And I had submitted about 3 different manuscripts before he decided that he was more interested in the fiction than he was the poetry. And I assumed that it would be a book of poetry. And of course it is. It's just written in prose. I mean, genre in literature is like genre in music. You know, it depends on what your perspective is. And before Eric paid attention to my work and appreciated it, I kept having other people read the work, and they kept telling me what it wasn't instead of what it was. And Eric started to tell me what it was. That's how this came to be. I have never worked with an editor who was as gentle as him, and I appreciate that. The first bit I'm going to read, the title of the book is Pieces of Sky, which is from a much larger work called Bottomless Sky, which is a full-length novel. And the novel is like 3,000 word chapters, and this is reduced to like 1,500 words per chapter. So we really honed it in to something much more compact. And because it's not a sequential story, I'm going to read bits of pieces of sky instead of whole chapters of pieces of sky to introduce you to the characters. I mean, the book is so small that if I read the whole thing to you, you won't need to buy it. So I just want to tease you. There are 2 primary characters. One is Adamus, who is a television director who comes to Minneapolis to direct a performance art piece written by Aquanetta. They're lifelong friends, and Adamus made time in his schedule to come and be a director, and he was reluctant the whole time. And before I have to stop in the middle, I had a flu shot earlier this week. I've been sick ever since. But this talks about when and why Adamus came to Minneapolis. The title of the chapter is Under My Breath. Gray skies presided over a damp chill to signal the long darkness ahead. Dim autumn days are difficult moves to swing, and they can shiver a body to the bone like wind chill. As I crossed the parking lot, headed for the theater for rehearsal, I felt older than my years and stretched like the skin of a gazelle over the head of a drum. Stretched in all directions, too loose to feel trapped, too tight to make a joyful noise. I was weathered raw and graying at my temples. I felt tacked to the boards at every loose end. But I promised Aquanetta I would do this. I altered my schedule so I could. But now that I was in Minneapolis, I wondered if I should have stayed in Birmingham. I wondered if I was up to the challenge. With my shoulder bag slung across my chest, I cut through the autumn breeze wearing the heaviest coat I owned and hoping that I would get out of town before snowfall. Why, I thought, did Netta think I could direct a live performance art event. My business is television. In some ways, I escaped the normal of my environment and became like a runaway slave hiding in plain sight, or a free man in slave territory. It's a miracle I'm still alive, I often say. Nothing justifies or validates me but me. But here I am, wearing knife wounds like casual ventilation. I've learned to laugh when nothing is funny and walk away rather than kill somebody. My pride is in walking away instead of running away. And when I can't walk away, I stand and fight. For a time, I fought alongside Aquanetta down in Alabama, and she helped me to see my worth through a different lens. I'm the best director at Alabama Public Television, but I will always be the black director on staff. As long as I'm content to be their token, I'll have a job. Directors think they're God. It's an industry joke, but there were a few Southern white folks who would readily assume such a prerogative for a black man named Adams. I was director of minority affairs programs, high school sports events, a fishing show, and special productions like the Miss Black Birmingham pageant, or the documentary Netta and I produced together years ago about the mighty clouds of joy. Occasionally, when I went to Washington, D.C. to work with the Black Entertainment Network, I found some new respect. But again, black directors direct black programs for black people. Outside of the environment where I had proven myself for years to be competent, I had little transferable clout. A Negro beauty pageant. Who would have thought, our program director, Bill, said, when he gave me the assignment, "Why, Bill, didn't you get the word that black is beautiful?" In a mocking gesture, Bill raised his right hand and laughingly said, "Right on, brother," under my breath, which is where so much anxiety lives. I said, "You motherfucker." It gave me pleasure to inform him that he would need to find another director for the pageant. I was leaving for Minneapolis. There's a book by Randall Robinson that was his first memoir, called Defending the Spirit. He wrote several other books after that, but some language from that book stays with me because of a particular line. And he was describing people who are always living on the bottom and never understanding why. And the phrase was the chronic discomfort of unexplained bottomness. And that phrase is so meaningful to me that I titled one of the chapters, Unexplained Bottomness. And there's a context that I alluded to earlier when the New Day Blues Band opened for Maceo Parker. And this is loosely based on that experience. Aquanetta often escaped to private realities, wrapping herself in psychosis, delusions of inferiority, vanity, or ego, depending on her mood, the weather, and carelessly thrown dice. She uses music as white noise in moments where she has control and memories of songs when she doesn't. Variations on what is known as jazz and its bastard children are about all she's got. Sometimes it's all she wants or needs, except she's got to eat and sleep, and so she also has skills that allow her to make her way in the world, that requires servitude. She's got Bessie's blues almost all the time, and she doesn't, and when she doesn't, she's got somebody else's blues. Her affective disorder is more than seasonal, it's chronic. Like it was designed to be her station in a museum white wall world. Brown images set in a white sea often cannot float because denseness makes it hard for air to get inside, and buoyancy is not really learned. So she does not swim anymore. Gave that up to learn to fly, following exit signs everywhere she goes, gets her where she wants to be. Out is all, in all its conceptions, variations, out of here, out of bounds, out from under governance and expectations. This outness, she explains in art. The room was filled with second-hand cannabis smoke and electricity. It was 1990, and the band was opening that night for Maceo Parker's group, who everybody knew was going to turn the joint out, inside out. Aquanetta had poems in her head, in her hand, and more music on a music stand. Words flowed through her mind like a thawed river running to the Gulf of Mexico. By the time she reached the microphone, what came out of her existed nowhere else but in the air. Spirits in the house! Spirits in the house! She begged, wondering from whence it came. Spirits in the house! She shouted again and again. Ghost in the music took over, and she said every word songs and stories and poems, songs and stories and poems left behind by ancestors who would not be stilled by death. Go! She howled like a wolf in moonlight. The music swirled around her like water in a vortex. Piano, drums, bass, flute, and saxophone. The chronic blues band made space for her. And she walked on top like a Jesus visit across a pond. They made meaning by filling the space with sincerity. And the prayer warrior poet stood there in the middle of a brother system pushing poetry, or was it pushing her? There, unconsciously present and lost inside, forgotten lyrics found her, and our hell let loose and surrendered to a rush of drum day. And which held her captive, but before dropping her like a rag doll back into the room, Aquanetta and her story, she is her story. She is, as she says, starting over, trying to grasp more of it. It's impossible to tell my entire story because it began with ever after, and it flows like rivers and lakes to a sea. Emotionally, the process of reaching back for the story feels like a river when it floods. When a river floods, it remembers where it used to flow. The river, emotional and sometimes aggressive, remembers that water is the dominant culture and all life on earth depends on its movement, its temperature. She was learning to channel the powers of the water and the ghost that flowed in her imagination. Her mirror, memory and imagination came together as a trilogy informing creative process and led by something completely new. Something completely new was, after all, the point of it, the point of being an artist, right? They meant to understand at a juncture in space and time to, as they say, hit, a fresh hit. And somehow there was space for whatever happened. It's what Gloria called the fresh hit. The Chronic Blues Band definitely called it a fresh hit. It was fresh every time, like vegetables at the farmer's market. Performing together like this is ritual. It's like a seance. When it was time to go on that night at the Blue Dog, Netta was caught up in the excitement of possibilities. The audience in the distance, in the dim light of smoky ambience, responded as if they knew, as if they felt what the band felt, as if the power that pushed it was through them, was there calling as well. They were lost in the orgasm of the music that occupied the space around them. Spirits flew like cartoon ghosts just beneath the ceiling, laughing, singing, and bellowing names of forgotten souls released from bondage, recalling anonymous legends who only played free jazz and who only let loose when they genuinely had something provocative to say. Aquanetta wasn't a singer, but music formed her words and sounds led her through unrehearsed sounds, unrehearsed things found in the air. She wasn't a singer, but she held voices of singers in her heart. On stage, she was free to be outrageous. When she stood behind a microphone, she set captives free. Like her prayer warrior grandmother and her preacher mother before her, she was experienced and surrendering to Holy Ghost. She was comfortable with inspired expression. If you listen, she implored the audience, if you listen, you can hear your life story, or a part of it, or a day of it, she said, paraphrasing a poem, or your part of it, or a day of it. It can make you happy, it can make you cry, it can make you leave this earth. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And wonder where you've been. Where had they been? She wondered as they listened to a recording of the concert later. Inside the music is one answer, but they had also been to places no one could identify. The Chronic Blues Band explored options no one knew they had, options that weren't designations until they arrived there, outside of time, inside music. Wherever they had all gone was uncharted, but they knew how to go there because they'd been on similar trips before. They knew how to practice freedom. They knew how to practice freedom and to surrender to the journey. And they knew how to listen to each other and find their way out of their constriction. Just like we rehearsed it. That's what Faye likes to call a fresh hit. Eric also selected a couple of quintets. I was invited a couple years ago to write 5-line poems for George Roberts over at Downstairs Press on the north side. And it was using the constraints of the forum to actually hone in. And I will share a couple of those, and then we will go into the reception part of the evening. The first one is one that he selected for his book called Bringing Gifts, Bringing something else. Anyway, it's a book of 50 quintets, and this is the one that he chose for the book. It's also on my latest CD called Balm. The title of the quintet is Thor, aka This Damn World. To have a place To live, I've had to recreate the universe. I'm writing an afterlife in case the dominant culture over there thinks of me as an object. Yeah, I'm going to write an afterlife. I'm going to write an afterlife. To have somewhere to live over there. Without poetry, fiction, and music, I'd settle for this damn world. Which makes me beg and lie for food, shelter, and love. have a place to live, I've had to recreate the universe. I'm writing an afterlife in case the dominant culture over there thinks of me as an object.
Amen.
Without poetry, fiction, and music, I'd settle for this damn world, which makes me sweat, beg, and lie for food, shelter, and love.
Love. Wow, nothing like love.
I'm going to read the other quintet, and then the musicians are going to continue to play. And if you would like for me to sign your book, I'll be sitting right here. This, the title of this quintet is 11. If I did not fall in love with beauty, wrote Amiri Baraka, I'd be cooler. Beauty took a vicious turn at a junction of love and self-loathing. Media made caricatures, salt wounds of ancestors. Canons that render us invisible still dominate history. If I had not fallen in love with beauty, with autobiography, I'd be cooler, stone cold. Thank you. Davu, Seru. Faye Blakely. And I want to thank Wayne Taxi again for making such a beautiful book and for a beautiful relationship and collaboration, and of course the State Arts Board. Thank you so much for coming. We would have been lonely without you.